Okay. Well, I think we left off last time. We were talking about your many journeys around the world, your travels. I just lost some questions.
Okay.
So what has been your proudest moment in life, Laurie?
I think that the thing that I'm most amazed at is that I got sober. That I figured out enough that it was a problem and that I got sober. Because, and I don't really consider it pride because I know it wasn't me. It was just the hand of God leading me where He needed me to go. We were talking about that this morning at the meeting about how all we have to do is bend and we get on the right path. If we don't bend, we keep missing the connection.
Right.
And I don't think I can take pride in anything I've done as far as look what I accomplished. It's more like, how did that happen? How did it happen that a little Midwest girl who barely made it out of college, before she made it out of college, got to go to Korea and teach the president's daughter, who's now the president of Seoul, of Korea, who's now the president of Korea? How did it happen that I got to go to the convent with the best friend of the Japanese current prince and princess? Just happened. Just in the right place at the right time. Those are great experiences. I met wonderful people, and I have nothing but respect for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know it's God leading me where He wanted me to go. I consider that we're all parts of God. You got a stomach ache?
No.
Okay. Just checking. We're all parts of God, and when the pieces hit in the right format, that is, you're open and they're open, and somehow you experience a special moment with people.
Right.
A lot of people think that's luck or that's karma or something, but I think it's the grace of God. When I came back to this country, I was so muddled up with alcohol and drugs because I wanted to lose weight. My sister gave me a prescription for Bennies.
Yeah,
And
let's,
she said,
let's speed.
Yeah, speed. Neither she nor I knew that it was addictive. I mean, it was prescribed by the doctor, but that was my first real experience of, oh, this is doing something wonderful. I have all this energy. And then I increased it because for an alcoholic, if one is good, more is better, you know? And I barely graduated college with a certificate, a degree. So I had to go back to college again to get certified as a teacher so I could teach. Because before I was on emergency certification. And but I was just muddled up, you know, I was just muddled up between the drugs and the booze. And for a period I got religion and I kind of stopped the booze for the moment for 2 years. That was my understanding. If you didn't drink for 2 years, you weren't alcoholic. So I didn't drink for 2 years. But amazingly, I started up after those 2 years and just got home. Went from 0 to 100 in a very short time. And I considered myself that not being the problem because I worked really hard. I lived in my brother's attic. I'd steal booze from his basement refrigerator. God knows how much. I just took a guess at it and paid them off after I got sober. But, you know, I would go to work early and then work late and stop at Pepperoni's to have pizza, don't you know, plus booze. Then I go home and steal from my brother's booze in the basement and pass out, you know. So it's amazing those kids didn't die from SIDS or something, because I was supposed to be babysitting them. Poor John and Julie and Jen, but they survived me. I got sober in '83, and I was still living in my brother's attic. And after that first 6 months, I moved into Mary Helm's Betts' parents' basement. They had just completed an apartment in their basement. Lived there for a while with Kathy Randleman and with Nancy, who later married the guy that runs the central office. You know, the gray-haired guy with a beard.
Terry?
Terry. Later married Terry. Then I eventually moved out of there into Louise's place. Well, no. I lived in Louise's place for a while. Then I moved into College Apartments. Then I moved over to this duplex over here. Then I moved in with my dad for 4 years. Then I eventually moved here. And that's the story. I'm sticking to it. But I mean, during those times, I started the first CASA program in Nebraska.
Tell me about your work at CASA.
Well, it started out that the judge called me and said, I've got this new program I want you to take a look at because I think you'd be perfect for it. He said it's a program where you train volunteers to be advocates for abused and neglected children. And I'm thinking, only attorneys do that. How can a layperson do that?
So how did the judge know to call you?
Because I had worked with him before as a caseworker in the county.
So you did social work?
I did social work. I represented kids in the court as a social worker. And so he said, well, I want you to take a few cases and see what you think. So I did. And I thought, yeah, we could do this. We could do this. Once I read the material up on it and stuff, I thought, I'm perfectly qualified for this. I could do this. So I started the program up. I taught myself how to use the computer, which was amazing to me. I actually knew more than the secretaries did because they were still using the old languages. This was when Windows was just beginning to come into place. I taught myself how to use Word perfect, and so that function as a secretary for me till the last 3 years of the program that I was there. But I was able to get it funded to have a secretary part-time, and that helped a lot. But at the end of 10 years, they kind of wanted me to leave. I didn't have a master's degree or anything, and I was a little bit verbal about what I thought about things. And later, Peggy had me make amends for that. So I ended up on good terms with them, but I left after 10 years.
So during your time at CASA, what was the best memory of working at CASA?
I think it was that the program gained esteem in the state of Nebraska to the point where it's now a statewide program, as well as a national program. And I think that was in large part to Judge Staley and myself, pushing for more advocacy for abused and neglected children, so that they actually had a voice in the court system. Before that, they had attorneys who barely knew their kids. It was just kind of a fluff job for attorneys. Excuse me, I have no disrespect for attorneys. But they didn't have the time that a layperson could. The layperson could go visit the school. visit the home, come unannounced, visit with the child privately and see what they really wanted as opposed to what everybody else was saying they wanted. And begin to take a look at it fresh as a lay trained person for what was best for that child. Not what either parent wanted, but what did that child want. And I think that was a real significant change in the legal system for kids today because of that. Now, it functions differently in different parts of the country, but it still is a far better cry than what they had before. So, for that, I'm really grateful for that opportunity and grateful that I could be a voice for the children in the court system indirectly through the volunteers. And it was a real eye-opener for a lot of lay people who didn't realize how little voice the child did have in the court system. In fact, one of the gals that I trained went on to get her master's degree and became the next CASA coordinator after me. And at the 20th anniversary, she invited me back to thank me and to give me flowers for the time that I'd been there before, which was very sweet, very sweet. So I'm grateful that that time is finished. It was hard work, but I'm grateful that the program continued on beyond me.
So from CASA, where did your jobs lead you?
Well, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up, you know, so I went back to school, and I also got a job as administrative assistant. And when I went to school, my initial thought was I was going to be I was going to be someone that could work with computers. But I soon found that that was not where my skill lied. It lied in my appreciation and love of software. And that I could do things with software quite easily, whether it was Word or WordPerfect or PowerPoint. I enjoyed all of that. And I eventually found that I could do it in my jobs, like when I was CASA coordinator. And then after I finished with CASA, that I could do it for situations in the program where they needed service work. They needed a flyer for moving, or they needed like when we do the Foxhall Singers, I do a PowerPoint presentation for the music. But, you know, we are a patchwork quilt. Our life is a patchwork quilt. And each skill we learn adds to our ability to do things for others. It just does. Don't you think so?
I do.
So.
I do.
Yeah. If we use those gifts. I've been thinking a lot about that. Is that I think that I've used my gifts well and that I've passed it on to others. More than I will ever realize. But I think that's the only thing that I have. I'm not wealthy. I'm not brilliant. But I have tried to pass on the gifts that have been given to me. I'll come back empty-handed, but at least I used the gifts. I didn't hoard them.
Right.
I want to show you, while I think of it, the monkey idea for the retreat.
Oh, yes. We'll
So we'll do that
before I leave.
Yeah. What else would you like to know?
We were talking about your jobs. I know you worked for DICOB for a while.
After I left social services and after I left CASA, I worked at DICOB a year. I worked at Bishop's Office Equipment Company for about 6 months. I worked at MedSecure for about 4 years. I worked at TD Ameritrade for about 9 months. We were not compatible. I liked them, they liked me, but we were not compatible. I couldn't do it fast enough, and I couldn't understand all the technical stuff that they needed for you to know to sell stocks. TD Ameritrade was the last job I had, and I decided after that that it was time for me to retire. And I think it was a good decision. Little did I know. I went back to teaching, which I hadn't done in 30-some years. They still wanted me. Got my certification as a substitute teacher.
Did you enjoy your teaching?
I did. I found a new respect for kindergarten teachers that I never had before. That is the hardest job of any teaching job I know. But I love first grade, second grade, and third grade. I love those grades. Those were really fun to teach. And a good lesson plans by the teachers that left the children for me to supervise. And I feel particularly grateful that God gave me that opportunity, because I didn't think they would take me back at 30-some years since I last taught. And they did. And I took a course and I got an A+ on it, on diversity, which was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally liked it. It was an online class. The hardest thing for me to do was to give up teaching. I really didn't want to, but I knew that I couldn't continue on.
So, did you see differences in the teaching in this current time from when you 30-some years ago?
I think the equipment and the materials that teachers have today are just far superior to anything we had back in the old days. I can remember going into a classroom thinking, it's either going to be them or me, it's going to be me. Because I thought, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do the best I can. That's what I did. Now the way they have it laid out, the lesson plans and stuff are just so spectacular. I remember I taught 6th grade one summer school class, art class, and I loved it. I just loved it. The materials and stuff they gave you. I learned as much as the kids did. So it was really a marvelous experience.
So what about the kids? Any difference in the kids today than...
Oh yeah. Well, these kids mainly come from military families, so you don't have the problems you might have in some school systems. But they're probably brighter in some ways. They're more knowledgeable about some aspects. The wireless access, the ability to understand technical things that we never would have even considered when we were younger. I think they're bright and they're sweet, and it was a wonderful experience for me to get back in that field. And I like kids. Mm-hmm. I really like kids.
It helps if you're going to teach kids.
Oh yeah. But I mean, I remember this kindergarten class that I had. This is why I respect kindergarten teachers so much. In the beginning of the year, they're like wild little Indians. Oh my gosh. And I substituted in this one class. I came back to sub in the spring and I thought, oh, how am I going to get through this day? I mean, it was like night and day. The kids were so well behaved. So I knew it was the teacher. She had to have done a lot of work with them to get them to the place where they really were excited about learning and understanding, working together, and respecting boundaries and things like that. Phenomenal. I said, boy, that girl is worth every penny they're paying her.
Yeah, probably not enough.
Probably not enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So, looking back over your life, are there any life lessons you'd like to share?
I think share the gifts you have with as many as possible is one thing I'd say. Because God gives us a lot of gifts. We can't be selfish or stingy with them. We have to pass it on. Whether it's words, actions, materials, possessions, we're meant to share what we have. And it's kind of like the story of the loaves and the fishes. When you share what you have, it exponentially goes way beyond anything we can even imagine. I think that's one thing. And another thing is look for opportunities to help others. Always look for opportunities to help others. Doesn't have to be in a big spectacular way. It just has to be willing to help others. Just like you did today with helping me put the mouse together with my computer. It's a little thing, but it means a lot to me. And those are the kinds of things that stay with you. It's so important to share with others. I don't care whether you're a recovering alcoholic or you're just a normal person. We have to, in order to be happy in this world, and definitely go to a good place in the next, you have to be willing to give to others. Whatever opportunities arise in front of you. You don't have to be a missionary traveling in the wilds of South Africa or, you just have to be willing to do it where God puts you.